Good day, grade 8. Today is our computer 8, fourth quarter, week 2. My name is Rinaldo B. Malimban. In our objective in the class interface, when we work in any application, it is important to become familiar with the interface, also known as the Workspace, and also that the student to be able to participants in to utilize the interface commands, including drawing tools, layer, manipulations, and time controls. Create simple animations using shapes and motion twins. Use the motion guide tools to create more advanced animations. Utilize the photo slideshow and quiz templates available in the Flash to create their own custom quizzes and pictures galleries, and also the published Flash documents for the web. Now let's talk about the introduction Adobe Flash Workspace and tools. The Flash Workspace, when you first launch Flash, it's open into the new blank document. The Flash Workspace is divided into various features with their own functionality, and the workspace is comprised of these 6 major areas: timeline, stage, work area, layers, panels, and the toolbox. And this is the figure of the Flash Workspace. We have the timeline, the panel, the tool panel, current scene, layers, workspace, the stage, and the property inspector. In the stage is the light rectangular area where you place graphic content with creating animate documents. The stage, the authoring environment, or represent the rectangular space in Flash Player or in the web browser window where your document appears during the playback. Why? Because this stage is like the canvas that defines the visible area during the playback, and you arrange the graphics, videos, buttons, and other elements on the stage while authoring the projects. So this stage is authoring environment represents that the rectangular space in Adobe Flash Player or in web browser window where you SWF content is displayed during the playback. So this the view of the entire stage on the screen, or the view particular area of your drawing a high magnifications change that the magnifications level. So this maximum magnification depends on the resolutions of your monitor and document size. The minimum of value for zooming out of the stage is 8%. The maximum value for zooming on the stage is 2000%. So the gray area surrounding this stage is the pasteboard artwork. Your place to create her is not included in your final movie. It is like the backstage. You can animate the character to enter from the pasteboard on the stage. So this pasteboard is also a good place to store objects that are not ready to appear in your movie. Now let's talk about in a part of the Flash Workspace. Number 1 is the timeline. The timeline organizes and controls the document's content over time in layers and frames. So this timeline organize and control document content is the like movie film, Flash documents, and divide the length of the time into frames. So this is the figure of the timeline. Next, we proceed to another types of classes workspace is the layers. Layers is a document are listed in a column on the left side of the timeline. Why? Because these layers are like multiple film strips or stacks on the top of one another, each containing of different image that appears on the stage. The major components of the timeline are layers, frames, and the playhead. So the timeline status display at the bottom of the timeline indicates so the selected frame number, that current frame rate is the elapsed time to the current frame. So this layer document are listed in the column of the left sides of the timeline. So this is what you call the layer names. So you can change the name of the layer of the double clicking existence layer name. In the inserting layers, this timeline use in the insert layer button to add additional layers. So the objects is higher layers cover object in the lower layer. Again, layer names, you can change the name of layer by double clicking the existing layer name. So this is the figure. By the double clicking existing layer name. And also the inserted layers. So we had to add additional layers, objects in the higher layers. And this is the figure of the insert layer. Now let's move on another layer folders. A layer folder is just like any other computer folder. It is a place to store things. Why? Because this case is the stores layers. This is done to help and organize your work. It has no effect to the final Flash movie. So to create a layer or to add a folder, go to the timeline and click on the insert layer folder button. Okay, from the right side, we had to add layer folder, and you can then drag existing layers into the folder and close the folder. So let's move on another use layer visibility. A layer visibility, you can switch off layers visibility. So this is an editing effect only, as layer will still be visible in the published movie. To switch the visibility on and off, go to the timeline and click the dot just next to the layer name in the under eye. So we have the visible in the layer 1 motion editor and the invisible layer in a motion editor. Let's move on for lock layers. In the lock layers is the possible layers that you do not edit these lock layers. So layer by mistake. To lock a layer, go to the timeline, okay, and click just next to the layer name in the under lock. Next is the layer outlines. Outlines are edit move that show only the object's outlines. To switch outline, move on and the off, go to the timeline and then click the dot just next to the layer. from the name of under the outline icon. So we have the outline move is off and outline move is on. Next, frames. Frames are content in each layer and appear in the row to the right of the layer name. So the timeline header at the top of the timeline indicate frame numbers. So that is the figure of the frame. In the frames with the content of K frame with content, the empty slot for the new frame, and frame with animation, twinning, block, K frame, and empty frame. Now we have the frames. One is the K frame. So K frame, it is a frame where a new symbol instant appears in the timeline. Why? Because this is to create a new K frame to give a represent change in particular layer of the timeline. You can identify them by the blank point that is in the center. To select insert timeline keyframe of F6 or right click the frame where you want to place a keyframe and select insert keyframe from the content menu. Next, the normal frame. So these frames allows follow the keyframes and they do not represent new content and they are gray. So particularly, these frames always change in particular layer of the timeline. So to insert new normal frame, select insert timeline frame F5 and also the empty keyframes. So they are frames with no content and their color is white with point. To create a new blank keyframe, do the following. So select insert timeline, blank keyframe, or right click the frame where you want to place the keyframe. Select insert blank keyframe from the context menu. So as I said a while ago, the playhead indicates the current frame displays on the stage. As a document plays, the playhead moves from the left to the right through the timeline. So by the default, the playhead loops with it reaches in the end. So this is the keyframes. So you have seen the moving of part of the keyframes that also represent change in particular layer in timeline. So they are black point that is in the center. Okay, so that is instance appears in the timeline. Next, the normal frame. In the normal frame, this is the figure that they do not represent the new content and they are gray. Next, the empty frame. So this is a simple frame that no content and their color is white and black. Let's move on. Another term in the Flash Workspace is the property inspector. So the property inspector provides easy access to the most commonly used attributes of the current selection, either on the stage or in the timeline. So you can make change to the object or document attributes in the property inspector without accessing the menus or the panels that also control these attributes. So we have three property inspector. The one is the property of the text tools. Second is the properties of the rectangle tool. And the third is the properties of the tool selected object. So this property inspector displays information and settings for the current documents: text, symbol, shape, bitmap, video, group frame, or tool. When two or more different types of these objects are selected according to the view of the property inspector, that this property inspector is displays on the total number of the objects selected. Next is the library panel. So the library panel contains the media elements in symbols that are stored for a project. So use these panels to manage and organize the project's element. Next is the importing files to the library. So we have these 5 importing files. One is the image, second flashed, third layered artwork files, audio files, and video files. So in this sum of files formats, you can import into your Flash CS6 library. So the image by .eps, .gif, and .jpeg, PNG, and TIFF. And in the Flash is SWF. In the layered artwork, .EI, Adobe Illustrator, and that is the Photoshop. In the audio file is .aip, .mp3, and .wfb. In the video file, we have .dv, .f4v, .flb, .mov, .mppeg, or MPEG QuickType. To follow these steps of import files directly to the library, choose the files import to the library, select the files from your hard drive that you want to import, and click the open button. So you have to work this folder in the library panel. You can recognize items in the library panel using the folders. When you create a new symbol, it is stored in the selected folder. If no folder is selected, the symbol is stored at the root of the library. So we have to create a new folder. That to click the new folder button at the bottom of the library panel. Then you have to open or close the folder, double click and folder will select folder, and the open close of all folders, select expand all folders, all collapse of these folders from the panel menu for the library panel, and that include of the move an item between folders, drag the item from one folder to another. In the sort items in the library panel, you can sort items in the library panel by the alphanumerically by any column. Items are sorted within folder. Click the column header to sort by the column. Click the triangle button to the right of the column header to reverse the sort order. Okay. Next, let's move on for the tool panels. So a tool panel contains the tool used to select object on the stage and create text elements and draw vector graphics. So we have the selection tools, the free trace of the pen, the line, pencil, ink bottle, eyedropper, hand, stroke, color, black and white, swap colors, smooth, and the left side is the sub select lasso, text, rectangle, brush, paint, bucket, eraser, zoom, fill color, no color, snap to object, extended. So that is the tools panel. Another recommended is this follow by selection tools. In rectangular marquee tool, elliptical marquee tool, single row marker tool, single column marquee tool, lasso tool, freeform lasso tool, magnetic lasso tool, quick selection tool, and magic wand tool. So these are all parts from the tool panel overview that can you use these tools. We have the selection tools, the drawing and text tools, the color tools, the navigation tools, stroke and fill color selectors, the tool options. So that's the tool panel overview. Again, take note, the Flash Workspace is composed of stage, timeline, properties, library, and tools. That's all for today. In your module, please answer the following activity. For more updates, please monitor your eClass online learning platform. I'm Mr. Reynaldo B. Malimban. Thank you and